Hello, esteemed viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Niger Development Podcast Show. Today, we're going to be discussing another wonderful topic titled, How Can Nigeria's Unemployed Youth Get Themselves Busy After the COVID-19 Pandemic? So how can Nigeria's unemployed youth get themselves engaged after the COVID-19 pandemic? So with me on the show today are two wonderful young men who are passionate about Nigeria, who definitely have the interest of Nigeria at heart. So I'm going to let the young men introduce themselves. So Isla, over to you. Can you tell the viewers about yourself briefly and what you do and where you're chatting from?
Yeah, my name is Onyako. I'm from Nigeria. I was born in Aba. My father is from Umuahia, and my mother is from Umuahia, and my father is from Ezinite. So busy. Ezinite in Uboko, in Imo State. I grew up in Lagos, and I've been living in Canada now for the past 16 years. And I'm a system engineer by profession, and I'm also an innovator. And I've been working on, I'm mostly focusing on smart technologies and IoT and IIoT, that's Industrial Internet of Things. Obviously, we understand the importance of technology transfer. And that has been my focus for the past 10 years, making sure that we empower people back home, because when we do, it becomes easy for us to get capacity to be able to do things that we really want to do to solve problems in Africa, which is my major focus now.
Thank you, Isda, for that wonderful introduction. Enyoma, can you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Okay, my name is Enyoma Oporom. I was born in Owerri. I grew up virtually in Owerri. I studied initially civil structural engineering at Futo. I'm currently an integrity engineer. I've been living in the UK for the past 8 years between UK and Ireland, working in the oil and gas sector. And I own a company called Gianni Global Services. So we invest in both Nigeria and the United Kingdom. I invest in various things from commodity sales to buildings to various sectors of the economy, both in Nigeria and the United Kingdom.
Thank you. My name is Ekoma Kotobi. I'm the moderator for this program. I'm from Abia State in Nigeria. Originally a civil engineer, studied in Futo, like the other two guys. We all are Futo. We are Futo graduates. I've been living in the UK for the past 12 years, and I've just completed my MBA in general MBA, and I'm looking to moving forward to consulting. I'm the owner of Econ Consult, and I also work as a principal engineer with in the oil and gas sector in the UK. So over to you, gentlemen. You know why we're here today, to discuss something that would benefit our people, because we've been here, we've seen it done here, and we see that there is no reason why it can be done anywhere. So the topic today is, how can Nigeria's unemployed youth get themselves busy after COVID-19? Nigeria is a country of 200 million people, with the youth making up over 50% of the population. So it appears the youth is about 100 million people in Nigeria. And according to Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics, youth unemployment stood at about 53% at the end of Q1 2019. That's about 50 million youth in Nigeria were unemployed as at end of March 2019. And this is higher than the rate you will see in most other African states where they have crises. Like Liberia, youth unemployment starts at 4.7%, Egypt 26.3%, Libya, which is a war front, 43.8%, and Nigeria at 53%. So there must be something wrong, fundamentally wrong. And this situation has resulted in the youth engaging in cybercrime, militancy, kidnappings, robberies, and other violent crimes. So many young people have given up their lives, while some have committed suicide, leaving their families devastated. And despite all the programs such as Empower, constituted by the federal government of Nigeria, and YAGEP or STEP, established by the state governments of Nigeria, youth unemployment continues to rise. And we expect that this is going to rise after this COVID-19 pandemic. So as both engineers who have been in, who have done it in the engineering sector, and entrepreneurs, I know which both of you are, what do you believe is the major cause of youth unemployment in Nigeria? Does it imply that all these beautiful initiatives, wonderful initiatives put in place by the federal and state governments of Nigeria, that they have failed to address the problem of youth unemployment in Nigeria? So, Enyoma, I will start off with you. What do you think is the cause of youth unemployment in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you, Eke. I will start by looking at it in two different areas. It could be because there's a whole lot of things that a lot of people have looked at that have caused unemployment in Nigeria. I'll look at it from two angles. First of all, from the individual, and secondly, from the environmental, what I'll call environmental factors. From the individual, there are quite a number of things. First of all, I would say from my personal experience interacting with youth in Nigeria, there's a cohort of youth in Nigeria that have no skill. In other words, they have no skill, there's no formal education, there's no formal training. They have nothing to contribute to the society. So how do you employ such a person? Somebody that has no skill, it cannot produce, productivity is virtually zero. So such a person cannot be employed. Okay, he cannot offer anything to any business. He cannot do anything for himself. So that's one. Secondly, there's a set of youth that have some form of skill, have some form of training, but unfortunately, the skill they have is not relevant to the realities that we have in Nigeria. In other words, the demand, what is being looked for by the industry, it's not relevant to the kind of skills that these students are coming out with. So it's a set of students that have the skills, but the skills are not relevant. So those ones are not employable. The available business sectors cannot employ them. So that creates unemployment on its own. These are two things. So just coming back from the environmental factors, of course, there are policies, government policies that have not helped. Even the few youths that have the skills to set up on their own, there are so many things that are militating against them doing their own business. For instance, you talk about power, internet infrastructure like we have here, and those things that will help them to set up on their own. Those things are not available. Communication, those things are not really available. So those environmental factors.
Affordable, if I might just cut in there. Affordable in terms of internet and communication, they are not really affordable.
Yeah. So in that context, so infrastructure, environmental factors affecting people getting employed, affecting people setting up on their own. So just in a nutshell, these things are one of the few things that are affecting, leading to high unemployment in Nigeria. You could talk about other things like, of course, the environment is not really producing enough to absorb the amount of students that we are, the amount of graduates, for instance, that we are producing. Okay, so we need the environment, the industries to produce enough to absorb these guys. So just in a nutshell, that for me, it's one of the the main reasons that are causing a high unemployment in Nigeria.
Thank you, Irima, for that wonderful contribution. What do you think, in a nutshell, what do you think are the major reasons why, despite all the efforts of the federal and state governments to come up with programs that can help alleviate youth unemployment or reduce youth unemployment in Nigeria, which is higher than almost any other place in Africa, what do you think are the major causes of this high unemployment rate?
So thanks for bringing
Can
this
you please increase your volume, please? Is the volume?
Thanks for bringing this up, because I know I know I've spent considerable time having this argument. I will call it argument, but to me it's dialogue. You know, with most of our people when they come from Nigeria over to this place. I try to explain to them my observation. Okay, so and I'm able to speak about this from a place of authority because I finished my fourth degree in Nigeria, and I also, that's FUTO, and I also got into, we are the pioneer students for Master of Information Technology at University of Lagos. So I did that program for 1 year, and I wasn't getting what I needed. Then I had to leave it and come to Canada to do my master's in it. So and I've done 2 master's degrees, so I can see the difference in both of them. Okay, so I've broken my understanding down into why I strongly believe, what I believe is the reason why we are struggling with education in Nigeria. And one of them is that our educational system, I'm concerned about education here because, you know, we obviously, even if you want to bring investors, they want to know how viable, how strong your educational system is. Like in Canada here,
build capabilities. If there are capabilities within the system,
exactly. You know, over here, companies are trooping in here looking for space to set up shop because Canadian universities, they are not bullshit, they're international standards, right? And so a few things come up, and one of them, our educational system did not emphasize skills acquisition. You know, it was more tailored to passing exams. You know, I remember those days, you know, and you had to do whatever you had to do to pass exam, even when it comes to memorizing. So we got so good at, you know, memorizing stuff so that we can pass the exam, and most of us had first class in that, but we are not really solving problems. We are not developing the other part of our brain that is actually responsible for critical thinking, right? So, and now, in addition to that, it was not so, even when we knew that there was already a gap in the area of skills acquisition. Okay, so skills acquisition is good for people who really want to work or really want to create stuff. There is another component of our educational system that was also missing. That was on you know, focusing on building the individual, right? Creativity, problem solving, and innovation. Because I understand that the whole idea of university is not to prime you to go and work. It's priming you to go and change your environment for good. So I remember those days when we will see things we don't like, we come out and say we are right. Even within the boundaries of, you know, authority, we could actually effect change. We stopped seeing that. Secret court came in. The value system of our young people changed. Okay, so, and if you can understand why, I also look back and say there is a reason for that. And the reason is because our educational system in Nigeria became only for those who could afford it. It's only now for those who can afford it. Looking at myself, you know, growing up from a poor background, the only thing I had going for me was just my education. So I had to be scoring highest to be able to enter into any good school. I didn't have money, right? But if we now, recently, we are seeing that for you to even enter the regular universities, your parents have to have money. But if you really think about it psychologically, you know, statistically, there is no correlation between wealth and intelligence, right? Some young people are educated. So, you know, when you're educated, you don't have to have money. You don't have to be educated, right? You don't have to have money to be intelligent. So when you have people who can pay for university education or any form of education, now those who actually have the brains to actually, you know, think critically and bring in change, they cannot afford it. So you will have a lot of graduates who are practically useless and entitled. So that's my observation in a nutshell.
Well, that's brilliant. I quite agree with both of you. I mean, like, you are right. We all went through the same universities. In fact, I'm not going to take a piece of or a dig at the lecturers. You know, some people are beginning to question if there are so many good lecturers out there in Nigeria, if many of them do understand even what they are teaching. You're right that when we went to school, it was all about memorizing and, you know, virtually coming to pass exams. And that brings about, you know, students who graduate and only memorize and can't solve problems. And I also agree with your perspective about the environment. About, again, I look at because again, touching on what Isdo said, students these days are they want to live large in school, and that is, you know, that is caused by maybe the way they worked hard to enter the university. If your parents can buy whatever they can buy for you, and you get into the university, you want to continue with such life. So I think hard work has been relegated to the background, and people now don't work hard. That's brilliant. That's a very wonderful introduction I got from both of you. We're going to move it forward now. We're going to look at another. Again, our emphasis is now, we know these problems are there, but we can't continue dwelling on these problems. We need to think about how do we solve these problems. So there is consensus among economists today that global unemployment will rise, will increase after the COVID-19 pandemic. And you know that Nigeria is not exempt from this. We also know that no government alone can satisfy the unemployment demands of its citizens. But we have a peculiar case in Nigeria, unlike many other countries, like as you could see in the statistics which I got from Nigeria Bureau of Statistics and other, you know, articles which I read this evening. You could see that Nigeria really has a problem. Over half of the population of the youth are unemployed. And you could look at a country like Libya, you could see that the figure is so low. So given that Nigeria is a highly populous country, and the unemployment is quite high, what do you believe the unemployed youth of the country should do in the short and long term? Remember, emphasis on the short and long term, to keep themselves engaged and productive rather than waiting on white-collar jobs and complaining. You know, what they do is either they wait on the government to provide jobs or for them to get a job in this good industry, or they complain, they tell you there's no job. So what do you think our youth should do to keep themselves busy, you know, considering the opportunities provided by our country's size and demographics? So, Enyoma, I'd like you to jump in here.
Yeah, thank you again. Like you pointed out that our government just cannot do it on their own. And I remember you mentioned the N-Power. The N-Power, it's a good idea from the government. They are trying to do their own part to reduce the rate of unemployment. But the truth is, N-Power alone is only taking in about 500,000 youths. They are training in different sectors. So, and even looking at N-Power alone, their main focus is more on trying to fill the gaps within the public sector. So they're not even looking at the private sector. So they're
not looking at value creation in the real sector.
They're not. In fact, they're just trying to fill the gap. For instance, where in villages where they don't have sufficient number of teachers, they are getting used training them to fill that gap. Okay, so you could argue, is that really the right thing? Because that means, you know, we don't have enough teachers. So why don't they train enough teachers to fill that gap? So for the youths that at the moment do not have any skill, like I started with, because if you don't have anything to produce, if you're not productive, then you're not going to be employable and you cannot really create anything. So to start with, we need to have that skill to be able to create something. Okay, and we talked about our schools as well. One of the things I find within our school is that our school curriculum, the things that we are taught in school, most of them are out of date. Most of them are no longer relevant in today's world. We need to find a way to make sure that what we are teaching the youth, what we are teaching is relevant to what the industry needs. Because it doesn't make sense graduating students that don't have the skills to work in the industry. So coming back to the question that you asked, what do we need to be doing? Acquisition of skills has to be paramount. For instance, if I take regarding the whole virus that has affected the whole world, the next question will be which industries are going to survive during this virus or even after this virus, I find that even with the virus, people are eating food. People need food. People need medication. Okay, so agriculture for me would be key, a place where to start. For us in Nigeria, agriculture is what I would regard as the low-hanging fruits. Okay, within that sector, there's a whole value chain from farming. Again, when I mean farming, I mean mechanized farming that will increase productivity. From farming to logistics, transporting that to processing, up to the point where the processed food gets.
Sorry, if I have to jump in there, are you looking at short-term measures? Remember, the question is, what do you think our youth should do in the short term and in the long term? Because what you're saying, what you're coming up with is, are they short-term fixes or are they long-term fixes?
Yeah, so like I said, agriculture is a low-hanging fruit. So it's a short-term measure. Okay, it's something that somebody can easily start now and start producing. Okay, so it's something that you can quickly, you can quickly turn around a farm within 6 months, and you've produced something that will go into the market within 6-7 months, and you're selling, you're already making money. Okay, so that is a short-term measure for any average youth out there to go in, learn something and start producing. Okay, it's not just on the farming on itself, it's on the logistics as well. It's in processing, because one of the problems that we have in Nigeria is we don't add value to most of the commodities, most of the agro products that we produce. We produce and we just sell some, because we can't store, they end up in the bushes because we can't store them. So if you can add value as well, it's another skill that any youth that acquires that will be able to.
So you're talking about processing. You're talking about processing rather than just farming, but processing.
Yeah.
Processing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all part of the chain. If you farm, the people that are farming are making money. You logistics, people that move it or buy it in bulk, okay, they are making money. The people that process it, they are making money. And the people that sell processed goods, they are also making money. So the entire value chain, there's money to be made. And there's always somebody to buy it, because whether you like it or not, oil price is dropping, people are losing their job, but people will still need food to eat. Okay, that's one sector that youth can embrace and get something out of. Okay, so I was just talking about the agricultural sector and the value it can create, how people can make money out of it. So another sector I've looked at in Nigeria where people can quickly acquire the skills and start earning money is the telecom sector. Because just look at it, even while people are on lockdown, people are making calls, they are using their data, they are communicating. So it's another area that I think could be COVID proof. In other words, there's a whole raft of things we can do, from repairing of phones to selling of phones to anything that has to do within the telecommunications sector. So what do I need to do as a youth? Can I learn those skills? Can I learn how to repair phones? Can I quickly learn how to package a phone software, apps that's used for communication and things like that? Those basic things. Any youth that acquires those skills, I'm sure there'll be ready jobs awaiting, or you can even create something, out of nothing. So yeah, these are the two areas I think, if any youth that is really interested in starting something really, really quickly, can quickly acquire those skills. And the good thing is that some of these things, you can actually pick them online. YouTube gives you any video, any information that you want, or any training that you want. You can easily start something, learn it quickly, and start working on it. But long term, there are other things that one can do. We know Nigeria, there's so much skill gap in terms of technicians. We struggle to get welders, for instance. We struggle to get people that technicians that work on buildings. sometimes people go as far as Benin Republic to get qualified technicians to work on buildings, masons, plasterers. You know, there are so many
the guys that
things
do value tests as well.
Yeah. So we don't have enough of those, you know, locally in Nigeria. So these are other skills that people can start learning within themselves. I know that over the years, you know, I know in the past we used to have vocational colleges that train technicians on this. Somehow they've been bastardized like every other institution in Nigeria. And again, polytechnics as well, you know, the whole reason for polytechnic is to equip the nation with technical skills. Okay, everybody will not be an office engineer. Okay, we need those technicians that will help build, you know, our industries. Somehow we lack them. So these are the long-term plans. We need to start equipping the youth to acquire those skills that will be required to build the society, the nation. There's so many things that needs to be built. I was reading something.
I'm going to stop you there. That's been, you know, your analysis is so spot on. You've touched on the short-term things, and you've also looked at the long-term things. So I think that's wonderful. So Isdo, what do you think in the you know, in two sides, in the short term, because at the moment, you know, youth are struggling. You could see many of them, if they are your friends, they approach you all the time on social media. You know, if you look at the celebrities, many of them approach the celebrities asking them for bless me, do that, which these guys are better than that. And I know they can learn and do something better. So what do you think the youth can get themselves emerged in on the short term and in the long term?
Thank you. So obviously you can see I like using examples, so it won't look like we're making up stories, right?
Yeah, I would want you to keep it concise. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the Anambra mentoring program. Okay, so that has been proven, and even Harvard Business School have taken it up. Wall Street Journal have taken it. They've been studying it now.
That's the apprenticeship program. The apprenticeship program.
Yeah. So it has grown billionaires, you know, over there. And I'm sorry, those guys are the smartest people I've ever encountered. Right? If they tell you this thing will not sell, don't bother. Right? So we need to, but we need to, again, you know, we need to start letting the youth know that, hey, wealth is not about foregone, you know, consumption. Like
forgotten alternative.
Yeah, you invest something now to come out in the future. There is, I'm sorry, there is a necessary sacrifice that has to be made by young people. I'm sorry, it is what it is. And I don't know anybody that became successful today, you know, that did not make that sacrifice. Some people figure it out early, some people figure it out late, but it has to be done. Forget luck for now. So young people need to start understanding that at the end of the day, they have a role to play, and they have all the time today. There will be a time, in a point in their life, when that time becomes very expensive, right? Okay, so that's one, and their parents need to be telling them that, right? That's one. Then the other one is that we in diaspora, we have a role to play in terms of technology transfer, right? This was a decision I made on my own. By those days, you know, there are some highway streets you'll be driving and, you know, you start thinking, wow, like, I can actually do a lot, you know, for people, you know, back home, by merely sitting them down and telling them that, hey, this is actually how this thing is done. When you hear about technology, it's all about knowledge and expertise and doing stuff. So our people in diaspora need to start, you know, even when these young people, you know, they start, okay, so who will mentor me? We need to make ourselves available to start coaching them. And that means being patient, because you're developing a personal relationship with this individual, right? It's very important. It's really expensive. But the point is that Chinese people did it. Actually, Japanese is part of, actually, almost 80% of Japanese education is tailored towards mentoring. They just assign you one person. You know, they have this samurai concept where they don't care about the 1,000 skills you have. They only care about that one skill that you master so much that you become deadly with it. So that's where the cellular manufacturing layout came out. You build things around you, you become very good at so many things just to create one value. So we need to start transferring the technology we know, because when we create a big technology base over there, you know, capability, and, you know, somebody will bring in the capacity, which is jobs and infrastructure. right?
Sorry if I can jump in here. What you're discussing now, are they the long-term measures or the short-term measures that can be done? Remember, people are going to struggle after COVID-19. People are going to struggle after COVID-19, and we're looking at what are the short-term fixes to get them engaged, and what will be the
yeah. So when I talk about technology transfer, where it's not really free. You know, you go there, you give them stuff to do for you. Like we talk about software development, right?
Good.
I have like roughly 10 software engineers working with me. But maybe, you know, because obviously I have to do the prototype. When I do the prototype, and I will check it in, send it to GitHub for them, create their repository, and start, you know, giving them tasks to do. They do it, I come back, I stitch it together. The product keep evolving. Even we have co-op students in Canada here that we're also doing the same thing with. So it's that's the only way you can train train young people to actually learn skills. So it's very easy to do. They need that now. However, it can also be in form of when you give them something to do, you pay them mildly for it. Come on, let's be realistic. You can dedicate $100 to say, okay, or $200 to pay people who are doing, maybe it could be quality control for you. For whatever you are doing, it doesn't have to be software. It could be market analysis. It could even be statistical. Anything people do, you can pay them. But let them know that this is actually what work is. That's for that. I'm talking about people abroad, what we can be doing, because we can't leave everything to government. You know, then governments are borrowing money on our heads. We don't want that. So now, my point, that's what people need to start understanding, that we have a role to play and we have to be giving back. But we can't be giving people money. You know, let them do work, then you pay them for it. Then over time, they start seeing how their, you know, actions, what they do creates value, right? App development, we have Fiverr, we have all these platforms that produce gigs and all that. You know, so on the short term, for short term, those things are very possible. We need to.
So you mean young people should start thinking, especially those that have basic education, they should go into things like software development.
We should bring assignments to them and be willing to pay them for it.
I mean, when maybe I don't have I have a concept which I believe should be developed.
Yes.
But not all of us have these things. But are there platforms where they can register to learn about software development?
Okay, so that's a good thing. The whole idea of software development is actually something that is more tailored to your ability to solve problems, you know, and how determined you can be when you want to get a result. It's not like these are skills that grow. Every software developer is still developing. There are software developers that are paid $10,000 per annum. There are software developers that are paid $1 million per annum.
Yes, I know.
Exactly. It all depends. So it's constantly, so we can't say, I'm not a software developer. No, you can become that today. You can't say, I'm not a system engineer. You can become that today by somebody giving you a problem. You solve that problem, the person refines it. You know, stepwise refinement, it becomes a product. You know, so my point is that
for somebody who hasn't developed a software before, for example, what are you encouraging? I mean, the question now is for you, what do you encourage them to do? Do they go in the absence? We all cannot send them something to do back home. What do you encourage them to do? Do they enroll online with free programs? Like I know things like Academy, Free Code Camp. Is that what you're trying to insinuate?
So as an example, last 2 months, when the pandemic started, there were 480 books released by Elsevier, you know, covering several industries for people to start reading. There's no way you read 5 out of those books without becoming an expert. It covered this whole spectrum, right? Now, Udemy also has free programs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, our diaspora people, we can also, right, do pay for subscriptions and have young people go there and say, I've done that. You know, I pay for subscription and I give people their access. They go there and they tell me if they see more, I pay for it. It doesn't cost anything. Sometimes it's like $10. I'm being honest with you, $10, $15, and it is forever. So you give it to people, they go there and learn about those skills they want to learn because they are really self-paced. You understand that? So that can happen quickly. There is nothing somebody will do in analysis that is not valuable because you are not doing it yourself. The person is helping you out. So we need to establish those relationships, to start engaging these young people in something meaningful, right? So that's on our individual level. There is something the government hasn't done. That this does not involve money, right? This doesn't involve politics. Think about it this way: America, Canada, England, Switzerland, Netherlands, Germany, they all do buy their parts from China, right? It doesn't mean that China does their manufacturing for them, but China gets them what they need to build their capital projects. You understand? So, but however, their government made it easy to get these items in. Making it easy doesn't mean that it's cheap for them. No, that's China's baseline. It's always cheap. But when I place an order in Canada today and I say DHL or FedEx, within 1 week, maximum 3 days, it will arrive. And it
depends on the availability of the product as well in China anyway. But you're talking about once it's been produced.
No, I'm saying whatever you want, whatever you want, So a few things come in. I'm saying that the government needs to make it easy for these things that these young people will. I'm not talking about general merchandise. I'm talking about parts. You need to create stuff. Young people need to get into that concept of creating stuff. Create it, and there's nothing you create that solves a problem that there is no market for. It is what it is, And when you get on that journey, you start seeing how powerful it can be because you develop your human mind. This is not school now. This is that you see a problem, you go and research, take your time, deep research. Once you type it online, you start seeing materials, to find what you're looking for, not Twitter or Facebook. You go online, you do, a scientific research online that doesn't involve going to school, getting the resources you need. There are open source platforms out there. That question you ask, another person has asked that question, and you can see how so many people address that question. Then if somebody will give you an answer, there are Stack Overflow, like I talked about Udemy, there are Stack Exchange. All those platforms are there. There is GitHub platform even for new whatever. It's not software only. There are so many areas.
So if I can come in here, so if our viewers, some of our youth, because this program is targeted, this particular episode is targeted at our youth. So if one of our youth comes, like maybe drops a comment, in our YouTube session, will you be willing to tell, give them, say, okay, an advice on you need to go here, you need to go here.
Not only me. Because it's open source, I can assure you, if it comes to me, I have to answer. It's like, would I be willing? That is the way knowledge is evolving today. It's an obligation for every creator or innovator to. You may be wrong. You may put in a statement there or a potential solution, and that person comes and refines and tell you, I think it should be this way. That's how knowledge has been evolving recently.
Okay, that's brilliant. Can you please jump on to the what you think are the long-term measures? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's for that. So the government need to make it easy, because if they provide a solution and they say, okay, you will need this part or you will need this, government need to understand that if the young people believe that getting this thing is going to be difficult or will take long, they will just block that mindset. So government need to make it easy that when you need this thing, you order it, it can be covered under one government program that will guarantee or ensure that, procurement or whatever, or order, so that the people can send it to you without seeing you. We know we have fraud in Nigeria, but the government need to start, doing their own to make it easy for young people to get stuff they need, to actually get their hands busy.
So what you mean is government needs to make the process of procurement easy.
International procurement easy. For young
and make your funds safe as well. If you're into things like fraud and things like that, easy for you to.
That's the last one. So the last one is that today, Nigerians cannot pay or receive on paper. So we have all these payment platforms today in Nigeria. Nigerian payment companies, fintechs, there is nothing about payment they don't know. Let's call it what it is, right? And actually, Nigerian fintech, I know of InterSwitch, I know of eTransact. These guys are big now, and they are big in Africa, and they are going global. And and their platforms and even paper, they are all like equal. That even they're actually almost better, because African technologies are usually more rugged because of more challenges, more constraints. Exactly. So these guys' systems are actually very, very rugged. So, which means that if there is anything like risk, they have already addressed it. But there is now the one that is systemic risk, like, perception, sanctions that are already existing that Nigerians are not even aware of. If they do not open PayPal to Nigeria, it doesn't matter how many fraud we do. The government has not opened that platform. And when government do all these things they do, and our sanction level keep creeping up, and they are not discussing it, it's making it hard for us to do trade internationally. Ghana sells to itself. But remember, China started by selling to others. Then they started growing their own capacity. Now they can sell to themselves. So these payment companies, government need to guarantee, find a way to guarantee transactions, across the border. And it's easy to do. But they say that we are doing this thing for the purpose of, boosting, employment and economy in Nigeria, not anything else. If they target it that way, it will cost money in the short term, but in the long term, things will spring up. I know what's going to happen when people get into the mood of transaction internationally. They will understand trust currency. If somebody say you're bad, you will not get business. So it's no more government problem. You want to have business. So if government open it up, government should also have it bear in mind that this e-commerce platforms already has a trust currency built in. So if those trust currencies are allowed to run, fraudulent people will not do business. So it's hard to understand how up to now governments have not been able to address why Nigerians cannot do international trade. It's really mind-boggling. We're always trying to bring investors. Bring investors for what? Nigerians will solve the problem and bypass and come in here and do it. Simple problems, you're bringing international companies to come and solve for us. So if you do those policy of making sure that goods coming quickly, helping our goods coming quickly, then the second one, making sure that payments are guaranteed. I strongly believe that Nigerians will take care of themselves. We are very creative.
What you're saying, because Nigerians, if I can jump in here, Nigerians, I know a lot of young people now who are doing small scale trading. I spoke to a lady recently. She buys from Alibaba in China, AliExpress, and many of them. Yeah. And they buy things, and in bulk. And the more you buy, the more you the cheaper it becomes. And you can resell. You can resell to others.
Exactly. So, yeah. You cannot open an Amazon store now. Like, come on. Okay. They are telling you now that under this pandemic, that Amazon, hear me out, that Amazon made billions of, almost $480 billion within these 4 months or 5 months of, this coronavirus thing. Okay, so when that money is being made, don't forget that other companies benefited. It is just to move those goods, which means that transactions are happening there. You don't see how much Nigeria has been trying to borrow since. Meanwhile, all Nigeria needed to do in this context is to say, okay, there are so many economic activities that can spring up in Nigeria. Our boys can sew masks. They can do anything. They can sew it and export it, even if it means to.
So we're coming to that question. That's the next question before you get to that question. So.